Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3, for which we have gotten an update from Creative Assembly. Now, we don't have all of the details what they're going to do in patch 4.2, but they are talking about the things that they are going to do in Cathay and some of the limitations that they do have. So, one of the things they are going to talk about here, reflecting on Shadows Change. I'll cut straight into it. We didn't give you enough new characters and units to play with at the original release of Shadows of Change. Yeah, that's not all there is with Shadows of Change. While certainly the content wasn't ideal from the perspective of an enormous number of people, for my part, I think the problem of Shadows of Change is what they didn't actually change with it. Like, what they didn't change with Kairos Fate Weaver, what they didn't change with Kislev, what they didn't change with Cathay even though Cathay got the most amount of changes. They say that not all ideas and requests are possible, though. The era of Karl Franz is, as you've come to expect, a rich and exciting setting for Total War, and we work closely with Games Workshop, basically, to ensure that the content of this era is as faithfully represented in our game as possible. So what they're talking about here is the limitations that Games Workshop imposes on them. And that's the way I'm seeing it. It's kind of an awkward situation, I would say, because they have limitations on what they can add. And it does feel like, with respect to this, that what Games Workshop is doing is they're saying you can't add stuff, too much new stuff, especially if it's going to be an old world. Because one of the things I remember reading about is how Games Workshop doesn't want them to add units that they're developing for Old World as opposed to the era of Karl Franz, which is something of a problem because you have infantry limitations, for instance, for Bretonnia, or lord limitations like Hag Mothers for Kislev. Now, it's fair enough to talk about a more defined, a more unified military force for Kislev, which begs the question why exactly they are using Mother Astankia as a character, but whatever, right? And why they decided to make her as a character, regardless. Now, they are talking about the future of content for Shadows of Change and Thrones of Decay. So they're going to have 3 Legendary Lords. They're going to have unique gameplay mechanics for each Legendary Lord. Okay, fair enough. 3 Legendary Heroes, 1 per race. 3 Lords, 1 per race. 3 Heroes, 1 per race. Now, this is actually incredible when you consider the implications. A new hero type for the Empire, for the Dwarves. A new Lord type for the Dwarves and Empire. That is actually fairly significant in Kugath. Like, all of this is very significant. 5 new units, 3 regiments renown, 1 free LC characters as part of it. And potentially new spell lore, new mounts, free LC, subject to IP theming of the DLC where applicable. So the comparison chart they're using over here, they're going to add 2 new legendary heroes, they're going to add 2 new lords, 2 new hero types, 6 more units, 1 more magic lore, and 1 free LC over here for Shadows Change with 4.2. It's going to be very interesting what they're going to add here, and it also is looking to be much better for the sake of Thrones of Decay, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. If they had treated the Empire and the Dwarves in the same way they treated Kislev and Tzeentch in Shadows Change, the uproar they would have gotten would have been biblical. It's one thing to treat Kislev and Tzeentch like trash, which they did. Let's be clear on this. Poor Kairos, really. Poor Kairos, Katrin, all that. But if they had treated the Empire in a similar fashion, the Empire being the most popular race in the entire setting, a lot of people would have revolted during that, and it would have made this situation that they have right now seem insignificant in comparison. That's my perspective on that. Feel free to disagree on that. So they're adding more content. And where possible future content, we will be also be adding thematic Lords of Magic mounts for new and existing characters to make use of, and making some much requested free LC where it makes sense. So Katrin is gonna get the sled by the looks of it. And they are going to move to significantly bridge the gap to our past products like Cast Dwarves and what we will offer moving forward, starting with Shadows of Change. Yeah, content-wise, I want to point this out. Content, units, heroes, mounts, all that, that's great. I do believe it's important. And I do believe that certain things, certain hero types are very crucial. But here's something we do also need creative assembly on this subject. We need balance changes. We need redesign of certain mechanics. The supporter system. We need benefits to replenishment for factions that don't have it, have no way of increasing it, or have very limited ways. We need economic buffs for Kislev. We need a change of dynamics in a campaign like Iris Weaver. Not just new units, lords, heroes, all that. All of that is great, but, you know, you look at a Changeling campaign. You look at the Siege campaign, plenty of new units, some exciting stuff. I played that campaign. I spent a lot of time in that Changeling campaign. It could be fun. I use the new units, but I'm not interested so much in the new units. Like, the new units are all nice and shiny and all that, but what I'm interested in is a reason to go back to a campaign. And as I said, like, I've played the Changeling campaign once, however, and I haven't gone back to it. I have no reason to go back to it. And honestly, at this point, if I could remove the Changeling from the Immortal Empires map so he's not making Stirland a painful province that I have to invest a lot of money into just getting rid of the bastard, I would. But that's just the situation we have right now. And by the way, that's one of the changes that I would like, which has a change, is like, can we have an easier way of defeating the Changeling as opposed to having to discover his, undercities, if you will. Then they're talking about Cathay. So the theme of the Jade Dragon, his celestial court, his spies, etc. So they're adding a legendary hero for Grand Cathay, Satang the Watcher. Sentinel of Haven. So he's a construct, and he looks pretty cool, actually. Sentinel of the Sky. And we have an indication of how he's going to look. I'd say this picture, by the way, is a bit derpy, but this one is much, much more interesting. Probably going to use that as an wallpaper. Probably pointless to say that, considering, by the time you're watching this, you've already seen it. He's a construct, he's tough and heavy, he's got a giant bow. I'm curious about that. On one hand, he's probably going to work more like a bone giant than he is hero with the bow, because the problem is bows are a problem in the hands of heroes and lords. Now, I'm not saying they can't be useful. I mean, anyone who's fought the Wood Elves can know how deadly their heroes are, but the problem is there's a lot of range issues in the game. Like, this is what I mean. We need changes to the way the game works. Funnily enough, some mods actually do make it work. Like, I play quite a decent amount of radius. It's amazing how getting gunpowder units actually good. Very, very good. Though still some limitations. But, like, you're adding a bow legendary hero, and the problem is they're adding the Game Master of the Celestial Cities. Okay, so we have the Game Master. It doesn't say what he's going to do on the campaign, which is something that I would like to know. Like, is he going to give replenishment, which is actually one of the main things I would be interested in with this hero. The fact he's a hybrid combatant, it's like, okay, he's got sword and shield, so he won't be useless, but I guess we'll see how useful he is. I'm going to say it outright. The crossbow aspect, just not sold on it. He does have a mount, so maybe you can use him to just do a good amount of damage. From like mountain range combat. Actually, he could have a real significant role in an army because skirmisher cav can be useful to, let's say, corner camp, which is very useful as Cathay, or you put your armies in generally in a good defensive position. Doesn't have to be a corner, just a good defensive position, but the AI is not going to move against you. You can use a skirmisher unit like a hero to attack them, do some damage, and draw them towards you. So in that respect, the Game Master could be exceptionally useful. Probably won't be the best melee combatant. And I have to say, having a hybrid hero, like, I really hope his melee ability is capable of making him a good melee hero, because that's one of the things Cathay absolutely needs. Not a hybrid hero. The Cathay needs a melee hero. That's the problem. Sure, we have a melee general that's really good, but yeah, we could really use a pure melee hero, not a hybrid one. The way I'm viewing it, it could be something similar to the handmaidens of the High Elves in the best case scenario, but at the same time, you're looking at this situation. They can they can prove useful to enact in the will of their Lord Magistrate, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really curious to see what kind of effects, training, control, growth, casualty replenishment they bring. Monstrous and monstrous mounts, so we are getting the Grey Moonbird. Okay, so we're adding in another monstrous unit. Yeah, you know that flying unit we got, which has a change that was kind of crap and no one really cared about it. Yeah, but apparently we're getting a new one. It's like big birds. Well, we did get the big bird for Tzeentch. That was pretty nice and useful. So I guess we're getting a type of Phoenix unit for Cathay. And a mount option for the Astromancer. Interesting. It's very interesting because there is a unit that no one bothers right now because you can get it as a mount option for the Astromancers. Question is, would you rather get the bird for the flexibility on the battlefield, but lose the compass unit, lose the compass mount and the benefits it provides versus this? Hard to say. By the way, we got basically, they're basically calling it an Arcane Phoenix, is that, essentially. We get the Celestial line, monster and monstrous type. So this is all pretty great. So we're getting some nice stuff in terms of the units, undeniably so. And they're talking about an elite core infantry unit. I don't know, like, this is kind of weird. Like, people are asking for these kind of things. I understand the logic, but it's like, if I'm thinking about Cathay's roster, what do I think the weaknesses are of Cathay's roster? Do they need an elite core infantry unit? Maybe so. Like, just capable of not just holding the line, but actually winning fights on their own, as opposed to just serving as a meat shield for the Celestial Dragon Guard, the crossbowmen. I could understand the value of that, but at the same time, you look at Cathay's army, you look at the artillery, the range units, it's like you do have a playstyle. It could open up more possibilities if we had an elite core infantry unit, but just making the point. Cathay probably needs stuff to actually give them mobility on the battlefield. They don't need infantry, from my point of view. They need flexibility. And I think when you look at the units that they added already with SOC, they actually helped this, and they're going even further in that perspective. Maybe that's just how I view things with that. Like, they need monstrous units. They need mobility units. They don't need units to stand in a line and fight. They already have that. Maybe not the most effective fighters in terms of winning battles on their own, but, Jade Warriors with halberds, Celestial, Dragon Guard, all that, they're not horrible. They can hold their own quite well. Maybe it's a question for the multiplayer side of things as opposed to the campaign. Keep in mind, I'm very focused on the campaign side of things. Creative Assembly, from what I've been told by someone who actually worked on their games and no longer in the company, what I've been told, they focus a lot on designing the game for tournament players, and probably this is where this is coming from. And Rich Aldrich writing this, and they're going to be talking about Tzeentch. I'm going to say it outright right here. What I'm interested with regards to Tzeentch is what they're going to do with Kairos, how they're going to fix the Changeling, how they're going to give us an ability to deal with the Changeling. I want to point out that some people have pointed out that for multiplayer campaigns, the Changeling is fucking awful to deal with. It's not like he's overpowered, but he's overpowered in a bad way. And yeah, we get Celestial Lion for Celestial General. That is like the Celestial General, which is already a pretty powerful lord, is like, what are we gonna dual Grimgore toe-to-toe with the Celestial General? Might just be a thing. Really might just be a thing. Anyway, I do like what they're doing here in parts, but we're also lacking crucial information about like fixes, racial balancing, campaign changes, campaign dynamics. Like, I'm gonna say it out right now. Just adding a bunch of units, heroes, and lords, while useful, and in some cases essential, is not fixing fundamental problems. Cathay has the least of these kind of problems. If you could, like, one of the things that they should change with Cathay is the compass. the way the compass works is pointless. Like, Jan Bo's entire fucking campaign mechanic is meaningless. Because you got one that gives you casualty replenishment. It's one of the few ways of getting casualty replenishment in Cathay campaign. The other choice of a compass is to give you a bunch of income. And there's no reason, like literally outside of the victory condition, dealing with Jan Bo's entire campaign mechanic is meaningless. So I would certainly say that's something they should consider, like going forward. Like all that, the adding compass options, like, oh great, we get more options. It's like, can we have a different way of how this works and different incentives for using different things? I don't know. That's just my perspective on that. Regardless, Costine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more. Hopefully, we will get this. We will get this sooner rather than later. But we will see.